welcome to Consciously Healthy. I'm Claire.
I'm Laura. And today we are talking about wheat.
Oh, I love talking about this.
Oh, go on then.
Oh, go on.
Oh,
thanks.
How do you feel about wheat? Can you digest it?
No.
No, me neither. I've got to a stage where I can have it every once in a while, but I can't have it every day.
No. And I used to eat wheat. I used to have loads of food allergies, but actually wheat was one of the things I could eat, and now not so much.
And when we say wheat, we are talking about pasta, bread, cake, biscuits.
All the fun in the world.
All the fun in the world. Pizza.
Cornish pasties.
Cornish pasties.
Everything. And this is the problem, is that wheat is one of the big four main offenders that we talk about, which are wheat, milk, sugar and salt. And wheat never used to be the enemy. You know, we find in clinic, you know, the reasons that we're kind of really hot on wheat sensitivities is we find in clinic that wheat can really contribute towards things like arthritis. It can, I've literally seen people give up wheat and they had knuckles like out here and not being able to, you know, wear rings and, you know, suddenly give up wheat, all of that goes. Contributes to gut ill health, joint problems, memory problems, immune issues, growth issues in children, respiratory conditions, you name it. Wheat can often be one of the main offenders and causes for it. Weight gain, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And the thing is, wheat never used to be the enemy. What happened was in the 1960s, there was a man called
Norman Borlaug.
Great name. And he created a hybrid of wheat. Wheat used to be, and actually I was watching the movie of, what was it? What about the horse? War Horse. And they actually, you know, hid a man and a horse. That's good. What, 8 foot? They could hide in wheat fields. And wheat used to be really, really high. But because of that, you know, like the corn is at the top of the head, the big sort of sheath is at I don't even know what it's called. I don't know anything about corn anatomy, but the proper grainy bit is at the top. You think a very long thin stem, it would, you know, a lot of them would sort of fall over and the crops would fail, and also they were very susceptible to blight and all this kind of thing. So Norman Borlaug came along and he created a hybrid of wheat, and what happened was the wheat became much smaller. I think technically it's semi-dwarf wheat, and he actually won a Nobel Prize for this because, you know, what happened was greater crop yields happened.
Yep.
And that meant that
disease resistant.
And that meant that developing countries were less likely to have, you know, famines because of crop failures. So, you know, there was loads of benefits to it. The difficulty was this was never really tested to be fit for human consumption, and the gluten content shot up. And I don't know the exact specifics, so don't quote me on this, but I have heard tell that it shot up from somewhere around about 8% to like somewhere in the 80%, around 80% for the gluten content. And gluten in Latin literally means glue. It glues itself to our joints, to our, you know, to our gut, everything. And so if the gluten content shoots up, and that's the bit that we can't digest, then it also goes to say that we can't then digest this grain. And the difficulty is when you look at this from a sociological and economical perspective, wow, great, we've got more wheat, except that this now becomes a commodity that is so much cheaper. And so wheat is now stacked into everything. It is put as a bulking agent and a filler in everything. Like, I don't even know why wheat is put in some things. I mean, it beggars belief actually why wheat is in some things. You know, you wouldn't put it in there if you were making it at home, and it's nothing to do with it being a stabilizer, it's a thickener, you know, it's just crazy. And what's happened is, you know, we also only got wheat when it had been farmed, and now we have it all year round and massive exposure. And it is not uncommon for us to have a client in the clinic who has toast for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch and pasta for dinner. That's quite a regular diet, and a few biscuits in between. Of course, we're seeing massive fallout from wheat intolerance. Yeah. And part of the other problem is that we are seeing mineral deficiencies coming off the back of this. So things like magnesium, well, the gluten actually stops us from absorbing magnesium, and so we end up with low magnesium, and that's when you get things like the twitches and, you know, shaky, sort of twitchy eyes, that kind of things, really bad period pain. What else?
I think what's interesting about wheat, so the original grain is the spelt, which you can sometimes find in supermarkets and in health food stores, and it's got a very different texture and like flavour experience than the wheat grain has, and it's bread that is high in gluten. The gluten is a protein that gives it that chewy, soft, lovely, bready, doughy sensation. But spelt is a little bit more rough to eat, but the spelt grain is more rich in a lot of the minerals such as magnesium, iron, zinc, these really important minerals that we need to have in our diets. And the modern dwarf wheat grain doesn't have these mineral contents, so we're missing out on that vital nutrition.
So not only does it stop us absorbing, it also hasn't got them in the grain, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is where we end up with kind of quite a lot of mineral deficiencies in our food. So wheat has become kind of a bit of the bad guy. So I mean, actually, funnily enough, I had a doctor ask me the other day, which was nice to have my brains bit by a doctor. He said, so tell me about your view on wheat. He said, is it just wheat or is it all grains? And I said, well, that's a really interesting question, because the paleo diet, which is it's kind of quite a trendy way of eating now, would say that all grains, you know, you don't want to eat any grains for a variety of reasons that I won't go into here. But actually, you know, we kind of don't really necessarily agree with that all the time. And the way that we would recommend, actually I personally choose not to eat grains, but I have clients who don't want to go the whole hog and not eat grains. So I'm really keen on finding a grain that people can digest. And so we're always saying go back to the indigenous grains. You know, we've got lovely grains in this country. We've got barley and rye and spelt and amaranth, and there's just so many to choose from. Millet. There's loads. And so actually when you can find one that you can tolerate, things change. And for both of us, we didn't go completely off grains to begin with. We both sort of dropped into spelt and rye and barley. And it's only through excluding those now that we've kind of ended up grain free. So it's really worth trying the indigenous grains.
Yeah. Is that your top tip?
That is my top tip. Try the indigenous grains.
Ooh, my top tip. I remember when I first cut wheat out of my diet and what a radical shift that was, and it felt completely alien, and I felt like suddenly this huge food group that I couldn't eat anymore. But I guess my top tip is to bear with it, because symptoms will start to get better, which is an absolute blessing. And in replace of wheat, I would add in more vegetables. I mean, kind of one of the things that I like to recommend in the clinic is to have vegetables at every meal, yes, including breakfast. And when you start getting into the habit of eating differently like this, you will really reap the benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's our little show about wheat. I'm sure we will revisit wheat because it's something that we talk about a lot. And so if you want to hear more of our ramblings, then make sure you subscribe, and we will see you next time.